Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. We're going to talk about we're going to do a feeding video. We're going to talk about all things to feed your bearded dragon a little bit later in the week. But tonight, since everybody's weather is kind of being weird and a lot of changes are taking place and most of us are going from having been way too warm to a little chilly, I wanted to take a minute and go over lighting and heat for your bearded dragons and how it changes in the different seasons. Okay. In today's video, I'm sitting in front of Merlin's enclosure. This is Merlin's house. And here is Merlin, Mr. Handsome. Merlin is 15 months old. His birthday was on July 1st, and he turned into a big shot. He's a big adult now. But he's a very young adult. So, you know, those of you that watched the introductory video, you saw Finian, and he's very mellow, very calm, you know, very middle-aged man. Where this guy is, you know, a young adult. He's an adult and he's fully grown, fully sexually mature, but has an attitude. So, you know, he can be a little bit of a butt once in a while. But he's basically a good boy. He was very interesting when I got Merlin. He was 3 grams is how much he weighed. He was 10 days old and tiny. He was about that long, with his tail maybe that long. Very, very little. He was dark gray. I didn't know what to expect. His mom is a fully red leatherback. His dad is a normal scale gray, kind of like Finn that you saw before. So I wasn't sure. When I got him, he was nice and smooth, and I thought, oh good, he's going to stay a leatherback. No, he did not. As you can see, he's neither leatherback nor gray. Each shed that he had as he was growing up, which is quite a few, any of you that have had juveniles know that in the first year they shed about every 6 to 8 weeks because they grow so incredibly fast. So every shed that he did, he got a little lighter gray, and then he started to turn red. Then he got more red until you see this beautiful creature before you who has got lots of red now. And so it looks like he got his dad's scalation and his mom's coloring, which is sort of cool. If I can ever figure out how to post pictures, you guys, I'll put a picture of his parents up so you'll get to see them. But yeah, he is, I haven't gotten a length on him for quite a while, but he is 507 grams. So basically in 15 months, 3 grams to 507 is, you know, good growth. He's doing great. He has no sign of any MBD. He's just doing amazing. I don't normally get juveniles in because as a rescue, most of the time they're adults. Occasionally you get a sub-adult, but they're almost always adults. Very rarely do I get a juvenile. You know, but it was a situation where somebody's dragon, she was babysitting somebody's dragon and her dragon, and she went to the bathroom for 5 minutes, and a mating took place that resulted in 3 clutches. So that 5-minute bathroom period, you guys, ended up 90 baby dragons over a 3-month period.
No.
So I don't know if you're aware, but one mating once can give you a clutch anywhere from 28 to 32 eggs every 30 days, up to 5 clutches. Well, when you figure the average clutch is 28 to 32 eggs, so average 30, you can be in wall-to-wall baby dragons really fast. So please, 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 please don't breed your dragons. Not only does the likelihood of having a lot of dragons occur, but the nutrition demands for the females change dramatically. And if you don't do it, you stand to lose a lot of babies or have a lot of infertiles or have a very sick mom. So, you know, it's not like a dog or a cat where you just keep feeding it its food until it delivers. No, no, no. They have specific needs when they're gravid. So we're going to go over that when we talk about the illnesses and types of things that can happen with your dragon. So stay tuned for that video. Okay, so anyway, Mr. Merlin is sucking up here. He's just now learning to cuddle because he's been kind of you know, like a puppy. You know, he's everywhere at once. Plus, his is the only enclosure that's by a window. Normally, I don't recommend that. And one of the reasons we're going to talk about tonight is because it's harder to maintain your temperatures when you've got an external source that can alter your temperatures. So it's not a terrible thing, but you're going to have to do more work if you have an enclosure in front of a window. Now, Merlin's tank is the only one in front of a window. Excuse me. But he loves the window. I mean, he loves it. If I were to put him in front of a wall like the others, oh, he would probably have clinical depression because he absolutely loves being able to look out all day, every day. So we will talk about that more in a minute. Okay, heating and lighting for your dragons. Always traumatic for most new owners. Always wondering, dear Lord, what in the world should I be using? Okay, so your bearded dragons, precious little gems that they are, have UVB requirements. Okay, ultraviolet B requirements. They need it for when they're young for bone growth. They need it their whole life for digestion. So, in other words, you can't just have, you know, put them in front of a window and go, well, that's enough light. No, it's not. They have very specific needs. So, even though Merlin is an adult and his, you know, bones are basically formed, he still has UVB requirements. When he fills his tummy full of dubia roaches, in order for them to be processed into nutrients for his body to absorb, to keep him healthy and happy and strong, he has to have ultraviolet, okay? Now, it's true that 2 hours of natural sunlight is like a full day of an ultraviolet bulb, okay? Now, so get a harness or get an outside play area that's penned in that you can observe, and get them some natural sunlight whenever you can. Okay, sometimes that can't happen, okay? Your UVB bulbs will do the job. However, you have to think about, well, what does it mean? Can I just put a bulb in a fixture and turn it on and go, okay, job done? No, you cannot. Couple of reasons. First one is, you're going to see a lot of different ultraviolet bulbs by a lot of different manufacturers. I will only use ZooMed. The reason being is that I like their products. They're consistent. I can depend on them. They have excellent customer service. They're actually located here in California, a couple hours away from me. So if I wanted to go down there and talk to somebody, I actually could. But more importantly, when I send an email or I put in a phone call, they are wonderful about customer service. And no, they're not paying me or sponsoring. I just want you to know that this is what I use and this is why. I have been known once or twice when I couldn't get a ZooMed bulb to use either Zilla or Flukers, but I have to tell you, I was very disappointed. Not only did my dragons get lethargic, much more so than usual, but they also, and the whole thing, their appetites weren't as great. They weren't sick, but I noticed a big difference with different manufacturers. And, you know, I know when I change out their bulbs that it really does make a difference, and I've had consistent good luck. The only time I really had a problem with the ZooMed product is I had a light fixture that was 5 or 6 years old, and I didn't realize the ballast went out in the fixture itself. So I kept thinking, well, the light bulbs are burning out. What's going on? Because, you know, they're not cheap. They're going to cost you a little bit, okay? And we'll talk about ways to maybe alleviate some of that as well, okay? But anyway, I didn't realize it. When I figured out what I thought was going on, I called ZooMed. I said, hey, you know, what's the skinny on this? Why is this being a problem? And they said, you know, can you send it to us so we can look at it? And you know, I said, absolutely, so it's not doing me any good. So I put up a spare UVB light, and I only use tube lights. Now, Most people will tell you tube lights are the gold standard. They're the best. Okay, they look like this. You want to have UVB lights, tube lights, that take up 50% of the tank up to about 70% coverage of the tank. You don't want 100% coverage. You do want to have some areas of the tank where they can get away from this. So be thinking about, this is where they need to get their UVB to digest their food. So my rule of thumb is I try to put it over on the top of the tank, on the mesh top, over wherever I'm going to put their food dish, and then make that the designated food area. So if I decide, okay, well, the right hand, corner is where they like to get to the dish. Okay, so I'm going to put the food. The light's going to go over that side of the tank because this is what they need to digest the food they're going to eat. Okay, if it looks like, I have a really picky eater, they don't spend that much time there, but they spend eons of time in front of the basket, in their basking spot. Okay, you can move this over to the basking spot. Either side is okay. What I would recommend that you do is keep an eye on your individual dragon, because when you learn to read their body language, they will tell you where they need something, okay? If you decide, well, mainly, he's a basker or she's basking most of the time, so I'm going to put the light over there. Okay, great. And then you realize that, gee, my dragon is seeming to be a little constipated, or they're not going regularly, or their bowel movements change, or gee, they're not manufacturing as much urates like they used to as part of their bowel movements. So, move it to the other side, move it to where they're eating. It means that they're probably not getting enough, whatever side you put it on. I only use Reptisun 10.0 UVB tubes. Another thing I really like about Zoom Ed is on one side, not only does it tell you what it is, so you can see it's a Reptisun 10.0 18-inch UVB light tube, but they even have a little mark down here where it says it says first use date. So you put in here the day you turn it on. Okay, you've put it in your light, you flicked it on, that's the date you put in there when you set it back on the tank. Then it says replace yearly. Okay, no, not yearly. Really, you can get about maybe 8 to 9 months sometimes out of your UVB. However, bulbs are going to get weaker over time, and they're going to put out less of your UVB output, okay? So what I would suggest, what I do, is I replace in 6 months increments, period, end of discussion. Everybody gets new lights every 6 months, both basking and UVB. I just choose June and December, and then I don't have to worry about it. I know that every June and every December, I'm going to change out everyone's lights. Okay, how to do that? Well, it also helps because I know that I'm going to be changing out in June and December. So if I look at Amazon and, Zoom Ed 18-inch UVB lights are on sale in May or April, awesome. Now I can save money and be ready in June when it comes time to change them out. So, you're welcome to mark it on your calendar and chase it down if you want to. By all means, whatever works for you. Just remember, they're going to lose their UVB strength and output. So you want to make sure that you are on top of it. Because remember, your dragon has no way to tell you, hey, I'm not getting enough UVB and my stomach's upset, and all I want to do is nothing because I'm not getting enough of what I need, okay? Something comes up, if you had to go stretch it out to 7 months, you could do that. But your dragon is going to benefit by you keeping their UVB source consistent and fresh. Now, obviously, if your dragon's a brumate, that saves you a couple months. Okay, if you replace it in June and your dragon sleeps for, like Ruby, she slept from June to October. Okay, that was 4 months out of the 6 months. I'm still going to replace her light in December, but what I will do is I will mark on there, on that bulb, it was only actually on for 2 months, and I'll keep it for a spare. Because every once in a while, something will happen. Sometimes you'll get a power outage, and when the power company turns the power back on, it's too much, and your filament in your bulb will explode. Now you have no light, okay? Get down to the store right then and there, get one, or store one so that you know you always have an extra. It's terrifying when all of a sudden your poor dragon is in the dark and you're like, dear God, what am I going to do? They don't have any UVB. If I feed them, they can't digest. What am I going to do? Okay? So, have an extra. Okay? That's for UVB. I am not a fan of any of the coil bulbs. However, if you go to Animal One Guy, his video channel on YouTube, he did an excellent video on nothing but lighting. I strongly recommend that you look at that, because what we all got to see in real time was he has a solar meter. I'm saving up to get one, but they're like $200 on Amazon. Okay, his solar meter, he put a different bulb on top every time, and then he put his meter under it, and it gave you a measurement of how much UVB is being put out. And there are a couple of the big coiled bulbs, not the little ones, people. The little ones are junk. And I'm here to tell you, if you're buying a kit from one of the chain pet stores, they give you one of those dinky bulbs. Please don't use them. Get a bigger bulb. But the large coiled actually put out way more than I thought. So watch that video, because boy, does it bring some stuff to light. But anyway, your gold standard is going to be, get yourself a tube light. Now, Ruby and Merlin both have an 18-inch bulb. Now, there are T5s and T8s. That basically is, it determines which one you need, determines how far away from their UVB source they are, okay? So be sure that you're looking at the packaging. It has a graph on it, and so you can see if your dragon's 8 inches away, you need one kind. If it's 14 inches away, you probably need the other one. But you have to pay attention, because you also need to know what fits in your fixture, okay? So you'll want to be sure to double check all of that when you're getting your bulbs. Finian has a 24-inch light bulb, because his fixture, he has a longer tank. So in order to cover the right amount, I had to get a longer one. But that's the one that went out. So when I sent it to ZoomEd, talked to a really nice guy there, he called me. He said, you know, it is the ballast in the light fixture. It's not the bulb, but we're sending you a brand new one with the bulb. Didn't charge me a dime. It was a little expensive to ship the original one to them. Well worth it, because they sent me literally a new light and a new bulb. I was set for 6 months from when they sent it. So I can't say anything bad. They were awesome. So like ZoomEd. Now, if you use mercury vapor bulbs for your heat source and your UVB, keep an eye on them. Everyone says that they last a little bit longer. They don't break down as quickly as the typical basking light bulbs. I don't know. I've only used it once, and while it had great output, it blew out in 3 months. So my personal experience isn't what I seem to be hearing along the rumor mill. So you're welcome to try one. It's a good all-purpose kind of thing, because it has UVA and UVB and heat. But keep an eye on the output levels, because you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you think it's working and it either blows out or your dragon has behavior changes and you're like, what's going on, right? So just keep that in mind. Okay, now I use basking. Let's talk about basking lights, because now we're talking about how much heat does your dragon have. Okay, again, this is ZoomEd, but there are many others. If you want to try another one, it's fine. But like I said, I like ZoomEd, I like their products, and I've had consistently and good luck with them. So that's why I'm doing it. This is a 150 watt basking light. okay, just so you can see the difference. This one is a 75 watt basking light. Okay, so you have 75 and you have 150. They also have 100 watt. Now, what's going to make the determination on your wattage? What size do you need? Well, a few factors. What is the ambient temperature in your house? Do you keep your house a little coolish? Do you keep it a little warm? When you put it in there, you're going to test the basking spot after you've had it set up for an hour or two. You're going to go in and take a temperature reading to see where you are. Okay, bearded dragon adults seem to like between 95 and 101 temperature in there. Babies, probably 99 to 105 is probably pretty good. You know, there are differentiating factors with that too. Do you have a bunch of babies? Are they brand new hatchlings and there's, 20 of them together? Or is your new little guy coming home and he's all by himself? Okay. How high or how close to the basking light source is this dragon? Are they right up next to it and there's, 2 inches of space? Or, are they, they're quite a ways away? Okay. All of that's going to factor in to your temperature, to what size bulb you need. Okay. Very, very important. Very important. Do not use these gauges literally for anything, because the error on these is incredibly high. Incredibly high. If you're going to put a thermometer in your tanks, get a digital thermometer to keep in there. I like the ones that have a probe, so you can put the temperature in one area, put the probe in on the cool side, and you can get a reading on both sides. Now, and some of them also have a hygrometer, so if you're trying to measure your humidity level, and dragons should never be more than 30% humidity. Really, 20 to 25 is probably ample. Remember that these are desert beings, okay? A digital gauge is the way to go. Now, I strongly recommend that you get a digital temperature gun. Right now, there's a lot of different kinds, and they're not very expensive because everybody's pointing these at your forehead because of COVID. Every time you go in somewhere, okay. These, when you point at something and you can see there's a light, a little laser light that comes out, 75.1, okay? I use this all the time. I take readings on the cool side. I take readings on the warm side, especially, and this is again where you need to know your individual dragon's behavior. If you look and realize that, my dragon's not going on their basking spot. What's up with that? It's too hot. That's why they're not going up there. If they go up there and they never leave, and you don't see them gaping, which is where they open their mouth and kind of look like they're getting ready to sing, that is what they do when they're warm enough and they're letting some heat out. Okay. Merlin, my love, you're being so difficult. Come on. Come on. So, if it's too cold and they won't leave, or it's too hot and they won't get up there, neither one of those are going to be good for your dragon. Because what's going to happen is eventually they're not getting the heat that they need, and they're going to end up sick. Okay. They might end up weak. They might end up with their immune system down and get a respiratory infection because they need to bask. Now, if you watch them in the wild, they wait until a rock heats up about midday, and then they go sit on the warm rock and let the sun beat down on them, okay, which gives them their UVB and their heat. Then at the end of the day, the sun goes down and gets a little coolish, then they leave and they find a nice pitch dark crevice to spend the night in, okay? And that's kind of what they do. So it's important that their heat source be a functional heat source for them. Now, again, know your individual dragon. I cannot stress that enough. Finn likes his basking spot between like 99 and 100. Finian likes his between 100 and 101. Ruby likes hers around 98, 99.5, somewhere in there. How do I know that? Well, they'll get in their basking spot. If it's too warm, they won't stay very long. If it's too hot from the get-go, they won't get in it at all. So that'll be your clue. Well, they're avoiding their basking spot. Well, they're not avoiding it. It's too hot, okay? Again, take your readings. Get a digital temp gun, point it in a few places, and see what kind of temps you're getting. Cool side as well. The cool side, you need to pay attention during different seasons because, again, that's going to be your ambient temperature. If that side is too hot and they can't cool down, you're going to cook your dragon. They have to be able to cool off. Now, ways to cool that side, there are some ways. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So, if they won't get in their basking spot, it's too hot. You need to turn it down a couple ticks. Now, how do you do that? Well, if you have a light fixture that has a dimming switch, take it down 1 notch or 2 notches max and see what happens. If you are using a light fixture where you don't have that option, it doesn't have that kind of a switch, it's either on and off or plug in, okay, then you have to change their platform. If it's too warm, get them something where they're down a couple inches lower. Put it in, make it lower, wait an hour or two, get your gun out, check the temp again. If that seems like a more reasonable temperature, then that should be okay. And again, your dragon will tell you because all of a sudden they'll go, oh, hey, and they'll get on their basking platform and go, oh, so much better. Whew, it was a little warm to start with, but now it's good. And you'll see them get up there, so then you'll know. And as long as they sit there, if they'll sit there for an hour and then you see them gaping where they're just opening their mouth to let some heat out, then you know you've got a good temperature. It's warm enough, but it's not so hot they have to go running, okay? Same thing, if they just won't leave their basking platform because it's not getting warm enough, then you need to crank it up. Maybe that means elevating their basking platform so that they're closer to the source. Maybe it means upping your wattage, you know? You only can find this out by taking the temperatures. Again, do not stick a gauge up there and expect it to be accurate. It's not going to be, okay? I always use the mesh cover for UVB and for their basking lights to sit on. Now, there are people that will tell you, oh, but that's blocking, you know, some of the rays. Yes, a little bit. It's important that you have a reflective source inside your basking light fixture so that you're maximizing that. But I don't like the ones that mount inside the tank. You can get those. But I don't want to run the risk that my dragon's going to get a burn by getting too close to it. Or it's going to burst and break or come off the mounts that it's mounted on and fall and hurt him. So I want mine on the outside for their safety. Now, if you like yours mounted on the inside, go for it. Just remember, you don't want your dragon all of a sudden to get hurt, okay? So your wattage is going to be determined by how close in proximity to the heat source your dragon is. Okay. Also, if you're using mercury vapor, your placement's really important because that's going to have your UVB, your UVA, and heat in one bulb. So you really have to watch the temperature and where that temperature gradient comes in, depending on how far away they are, okay? One of the things that is heartbreaking, are you insistent on getting back in your house? I mean, you can, if you don't want to be an internet star, I'm not going to force you. Okay, come here. I know, you're a good boy. You gotta let go of me or I can't put you back in there. You have to know, you know, like with Merlin, okay, his hide is on this side. His basking spot's over here. His dish is usually kind of dead center. So generally, I try to put the light where it's dead center at the most intensive spot, because then I know that he's covered. So again, your dragon will tell you they're very hardy little creatures. They can endure a lot. The problem is that works against them when the husbandry is not good that's being provided, because again, they have no way to tell you that something's off. And they can endure a lot and not thrive because, well, what are you talking about? Everything's fine, you know, it's alive. Well, yeah, there's a difference between alive and thriving. Sometimes it takes a really long time to die when you're getting less than optimal care. So you want to make sure that you're checking your temps with a digital temp gun, keeping a digital thermometer in the enclosure if you're going to use one. I don't use one. I check my temperatures usually every 2 days, or if I make a change in the tank. If I add new decor in there that they might climb on, if I change to a new bulb, sometimes the new bulb, same wattage, is going to give you different light. So if that's something that you're doing, you need to make sure that you're checking, you know, even if it's the same wattage, same location, everything's fine, you still need to check it, because sometimes you'll just get one that's just different. The output just isn't the same. And so you're going to need to make an adjustment here or there for your dragon's sake. Okay. Also, what happens at night? Do they need to be kept warm at night? That's a good question, and it's got more than one answer. Here's what I'll tell you. During the day, you need to have a 20-degree temperature gradient, at least. Say 20 to 22 degrees. So if your basking spot, your dragon likes 100 degrees, basking spot, cool side needs to be 78 to 80, okay? Gradient. They have to be able to heat up and cool off. Okay, they're designed that way. So you have to be able to give them that. Okay, well, do I need a heat source at night? That depends on a lot of factors. Again, what temperature do you keep your house? You know, do you cover the enclosure when you put them to bed? Do you, your temperatures outside your home drop pretty far? You know, that makes a big difference. So different seasons mean something different. All of my dragons this year, well, not all, the only 2 of them that actually have brumated, both brumated early this year. Everybody decided to do it in the summer. Okay, so I didn't need to give them heat at night because dragons do fine down to 65 degrees. They can even get down to like 62-ish before it becomes a problem, okay? Also, I give them some blankets, which we'll talk about later too. They're not for heat. They're just soft and comfortable, and they like them, but it's not a heat source, okay? Because remember, reptiles are ectothermic. That means they have to heat from the outside in, okay? We are endothermic. We eat food, which we then process to keep ourselves warm. And if we need to, we wear a coat to keep that heat in that we're generating. Okay, reptiles, cold-blooded, they have to heat from the outside in, okay? Which is why the heat is so important. They have to have enough to get warm enough. Then they have to be able to cool down and cool off enough. So, at night, you know, I'm in California, so we don't get very cold nights except really in the wintertime. So the last couple of weeks, we had a drastic change. It's unusual for our evening temperatures to be under 60 degrees. They just don't get there. Till now, now that fall is here and winter's trying to sneak its way in, we're having some, you know, late 40s, early 50s temp. Okay, when it gets under 60 degrees, I add a heat source. Now, we're going to talk about this. This is very important. Do not use a colored bulb for heat for your bearded dragon. I know there are a lot of people that use them for snakes. I am not a snake expert for sure. But I will tell you in the research that I've gone through that reptile vision is fascinating. Where we have 3 color cones to utilize for us to see color, they have 4. They can see all of the colors of the ultraviolet spectrum. They can also see red, and they can see blue. Okay? So what does that mean? Well, that means if you're using a colored bulb at night, you're disturbing their sleep, because not only can they see it, they can see it more vividly than we can. And eventually, it's going to harm their eyes, because when you have UVB or UVA, in order for their eyes to be protected, their pupil has to constrict down, okay? Blue lights, red lights don't allow that to happen. So their eyes are open to exposure. So eventually, you're going to harm your dragon's eyes if you use a colored bulb. Don't do it, okay? Use a ceramic heat emitter if you need additional heat at night. So if you are routinely under 60 degrees, or you like to keep your house a little frosty, or your tank is in a location that, gets, window ambient temperature, ceramic heat emitters. They look like this. They might be white or black. Depends on the manufacturer and sometimes the wattage. Okay, they'll either be white or black. You plug these into your fixture. You can exchange it out with a daytime bulb if you want to. I prefer to put these in their own light fixture, and then just move the whole fixture up during the time that I need them. And then when I don't, this heat emitter and the fixture, I put away. Okay, so, but you can change it in and out with a light bulb if you want to. These put out heat, and they come in different wattages too. They put out heat to keep the tank at an ambient temperature above 60 degrees. Now, what will that temperature be? Well, again, do you cover your tanks? Because if you cover your tanks, you're going to get more, a higher heat than if you leave them uncovered. Where do you put them? Do you put them on the spot that you normally have the basking light? I tend to put them, first of all, I use 150 watt nearly all the time for basking lights. Which is pretty warm, but usually my basking spots are, not too far off of the ground, because again, when I take rescues, sometimes they're not able to do a lot of climbing, so I don't want to put their basking surface way up where they have to struggle to get to it. So they're not too far from the ground. Okay, so there's a lot of way it has to go down to get to be the right temperature when it gets down here. Okay, but I use 100 watt ceramic heat emitters. Why? I'm not trying to get 100-degree heat at night. I just don't want the entire tank to be too cold, okay? So I find with the 100 watt heat emitters, you put them in to the light switch, just like you would a light bulb. You turn it on, there's no light. There's nothing to hurt your dragon's eyes. There's just a nice sense of a little bit of heat if it's gonna be a little brisk. I do cover my tanks when it's cold. So I usually put it in a large dome in the center on top of the tank and let it kind of radiate itself out. There's still room for the dragon to come in and out. If they want to get right underneath it, they can. Or they can stay wherever they've picked to sleep for the night, and there's enough warmth coming through where they're not going to become a dragon sickle and freeze to death overnight. But there's heat if they want it, and there's cool if they want it. Okay. This is just insurance, is all this is. If you forget, because it's been, fairly mild night, and you forget, and then all of a sudden you realize, wow, it was, 32 degrees last night. Yes, your dragon can pass away. Now, the other time I use these is during brumation, because when my dragons are asleep, I do not disturb them, okay? When your dragon goes into brumation, They don't need your presence. They need your absence, okay? Just cover them up. Turn off the lights, all of them. Let them sleep until they wake up. Now, if they happen to do that during the winter, then I very quietly plug this in, put it on top, peek in and check on them. I do check on them daily because I'm hyper vigilant. Yep, they're still sleeping. Leave everything there. I turn it on and leave it on because usually by then the days are kind of crisp too, and just let them sleep. There are people who get their dragons up out of sleep. I think it's a terrible thing to do, and I will not do it. I just won't. For one thing, imagine being sound asleep and somebody taking you out of your bed and throwing you in a bath because they think you need water. No, they don't. They're going to sleep because they're going to shut off their body. And when they decided, okay, that's long enough, I'm ready to get up and have something to eat and some water and look for a mating partner, then they will wake up. And remember, for brumation, anything from 3 weeks to 5 months is normal. Now, Ruby did 4 months. Okay. I still checked her every day, and she worried me a little bit because this is her first one, because remember, she was malnourished and she really wasn't healthy enough to go into brumation. So this was really her first one. Okay, but I checked her every day. She was fine, breathing nicely, nice and mellow, sleeping beautifully. But I had already decided. She went under on the 8th of June. If she hadn't gotten up by the 8th of October, then I was going to start turning on her lights, having her normal, 12 and 10 or 12 and 12 on and off, meaning hours, 12 hours on, 12 hours off, or 14 on, 10 off. I was going to start her light cycle back up and try to encourage her to get up. I still wasn't going to throw her out of sleep. If she wanted to sleep, she still could have. But I was going to start putting food in her cage, her salad and her greens, and just kind of try to encourage her to get up. But again, this was her first one, and she had a really rough year trying to get back up to peak health. So, her story's a little different. Now, Finn usually does anywhere from 2.5 to 3 months, and I also check him every day. When he gets ready to go, turn on the heat emitter if it's winter time. If not, if it's summertime, cover it, turn off all of his lights, just let him sleep. Let him sleep. You can check on him every day, but don't disturb them, okay? Now, Finn this year did 6 weeks, then he was up for a few days, and then he did another 6 weeks. That was probably because we had a reconstruction happening at the house because we had a pipe burst, and it was awful, and so we had to be out of our house, and so I had to take them to a hotel. That will be an entire video in and of itself. I hope you never have to do that. So it was a massive move and then a massive move back. So I think that had a lot to do with why he sort of separated his brumation into 2 months. 2 different shifts of 6 weeks each. He still got his 3 months in. He just kind of broke it up. Okay. Some dragons never do go fully under. Some just get kind of lethargic. And they just kind of don't do much. They just sort of hang out in their basking spot and kind of take long naps. That's okay. Some don't do it at all. And why? Well, because evolution designed dragons so that when their food source is scarce, here they are in Australia, it's getting really cold, there are no bugs to eat. It's the dry season, so the water has dried up. Okay, in order to survive that period of time, nature taught them to go into brumation. So that when they wake up, food source is back and it's plentiful, the rains have come, there's water to drink, and they can find a mate and start, with mating season, and off they go. So it's a normal thing in their physiology that evolution created for them. Okay, however, we keep their temperatures and their food source standard year-round, so they don't have to brumate. So some don't. It's been my experience that most of the time it's males that don't, because they don't really have to. Females usually will, because it kind of resets their biology to prepare them for mating season, because they have obviously a lot more to do during that time than the males. So, which we'll talk about more also in another video. However, so the reality is, if you need to use your basking lights, white or clear bulbs only. No colored bulbs. They will hurt your dragon's eyes. Okay? If you need a heat source at night, and remember, again, this is only if your temperature in your tank gets down to less than 60 degrees. Okay? Heat emitter. Okay? Ceramic heat emitter. You can get these at Amazon. You can get them in a pet store. You can even get them at Walmart. So wherever you are more comfortable getting your light sources, feel free. And please, 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 please get a digital gun that gives you your temperature. And again, right now, I think this one was about 15 bucks maybe, I think at Amazon. But there's a lot of them out now because of COVID and everybody needing a quick way to get a temperature on your forehead. So there's a lot of different ones that are not expensive. Please, please get one, okay? These gauges can be 20 or 30 degrees off. No, do not use these to tell you what your temperatures are in your tank, because your dragon could really pay the price for that. Okay, UVB. Please get a tube light, please. Please, please. Again, I only use the Reptisun 10.0 UVBs. They've been great. And remember, I usually have dragons that when I get them are sick or injured, so or malnourished or suffering God knows what affliction. So I have to have a consistent, good UVB source. I've never been sorry. So please get a tube light that covers 50 to 70% of your tank on the top. So you're going to do some measuring. You're going to have to find out how wide is your tank and how wide do you need in a bulb. Okay. And again, I mean, there are, lots of different ones, Zilla, Flukers, Exoterra, excuse me. There's a lot of them to choose from. I just happen to be big believer in Zoom Ed. So most of my products you're going to see are going to be Zoom Ed. Okay. And again, check your temperatures at least every other day. If you check them every day, that's great. I usually, because I keep the gun on top of an enclosure, so I usually, when I put the food in, just do a quick check and go, no, okay, everything's good, and away I go. Okay. If you're at work, okay, and you have a bulb go out, either your basking light or your UVB, and you come home and you go, oh dear God, I don't know how long they've been without UVB. I don't know how long it's been without basket. Oh my God, am I going to do? Okay, they're going to be okay for 24 hours. Okay. I would limit their protein intake though during that time, because they're going to have a hard time digesting. It would be easier for them if they're adults to digest greens. So if you have to wait till the next day to pick up a bulb, that's okay. I would use the heat emitter so that they had a heat source during the day, and I would get the lights replaced as soon as possible. This is also why, if you have an opportunity to get your bulbs either at the pet store, through Amazon or Walmart.com or whoever you use, it's always good to get a 2-pack if you can, because you always have a spare, right? So you're either going to use it because one's going to go out, or you're going to have your 6-month come up and you're going to need to replace it with the other one, right? Okay, so you want to make sure replace everything in a 6 to 7 month time frame, so that you always get maximum benefit out of your UVB and your basking bulbs. Okay, so that your dragon never has to go without something that it needs in terms of light and heat. Also, there are some people that try to cool their tanks down to sort of force them into brumation. Don't do that. Really don't do that. That can be dire in consequences, so please don't do that. They'll either do it or they won't, and it'll be their decision. And we'll talk about what that looks like when they get ready to brumate, when we talk about the illnesses that can afflict dragons and how to tell the difference between whether they're sick or whether brumation's on their mind. So we are going to get into that. Also, if you find out that everything looks fine, but again, your dragon likes to bask at least an hour in the morning while you're getting his food ready, and all of a sudden he's not doing it, check your temperatures. Something's wrong. So check and make sure. Maybe, you were maintaining a good 101 spot and now all of a sudden it's 98 and your dragon's like, what gives? 98 would still be okay, but maybe for your individual dragon it's just a little too cold. He doesn't like it, okay? And again, if your dragon gets in your basking spot and won't leave and never gapes and just sort of sits there looking like he might shiver if he could, then it's not warm enough. And again, the reason there's a range is because individual dragons like individual temperatures. So it's all knowing your dragon. And when they're juveniles, they need it much warmer than they do when they're adults. So be aware of that, because you might have a 6-month-old juvenile that all of a sudden isn't liking your basking spot. He liked it great when he was 3 months because it's 103.5 degrees. Well, okay, now he's 6 months and he's like, phew, that's a little warm. Take it down to 102 or 101.5. See if he goes back in. Okay? You can learn more by observation with these guys than anything else. You just have to know what you're looking at. If you can't interpret their body language, then it doesn't help you. So, please remember, double check your temps. Make sure your lights are not more than 6 months out. And I find it, like I said, I find it much easier because I have multiple dragons. I just know everybody gets them at 6 months. Every June and every December, there's a massive change of bulb. Then everybody's good for 6 more months. And then I don't have to think about it. Oh God, when was the last time I changed that? Oh my God, what was it, 100 watt or was it 150? I mean, I have too much going on in my life to have to do that. So I just know it's June and December. Now, if something happens and a light goes out, first I get mad because I'm like, seriously, it hasn't even been 6 months. But then you just replace it. That one you have to replace. However, like I said, if you've not had to use a bulb and it's at the 6 month mark, go ahead and mark it. Only use 2 months. Have it as a spare. So if you come home from work and somebody's light blew out, you have a spare until you can get to the pet shop. So those are the easiest ways to remember. Time to change your bulbs for your dragon. Okay. Your temperatures, guys, I can't tell you how important it is. The UVB, I cannot tell you how important it is. I have seen so many dragons having deformities of bones and losing their ability to move their legs or their arms, or maybe both back legs are paralyzed because they are not getting enough UVB and the right heat. There's also probably better than average chance they're not getting enough calcium either, but we're going to talk about that in the feeding video. So that is the basics. Again, I would strongly suggest that you check out Animal One Guy, Lizard Guru. Also, there's older videos by Weeby Reptiles, also fantastic. Lizard Guru, she uses a timer for her lights. So she literally sets it for coming on at this time and going off at this time. So that if she's late getting home, or she has to not go directly home, or something's going on, or she has to try or go to the store or whatever, she knows the dragons are still going to have their 12 and 12 or their 12 and 10 or whatever she sets it for, because she's got a timer. You do it for your Christmas tree. There's no reason to not do it for your dragon. So if that works better for you, or if your hours are very inconsistent, then that is a great way to handle it. That way their cycle stays what they need, no matter what's happening in your crazy life, right? So, and we all have crazy times. That happens. So hopefully you were able to get something out of this video. If you have any questions, you can always leave it in the comment section. And because we're talking about temperature, later this week I would like to do a real short video on how to make a sweater for your bearded dragon in case you need to take them out with you and it's cold outside. I don't sew, people. I do not sew. I'm a crafter. I cannot sew. So these don't require any sewing of any kind. Okay, so that's going to be later this week. And then probably by next week I will be posting a video on feeding your dragon. Yay. So much information there. So anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments, and I will get to you as soon as I can. I'm also going to tell you guys, please forgive the background noise. You're probably going to hear my Chihuahua mixes whining or barking at some point. I mean, anybody who has Chihuahuas understands. You kind of can't get away from the yappiness very well. So anyway, you know, they're honorary dragons, but you know. Okay, so anyway, hope everybody has a fantastic week and that everybody's dragon is nice and toasty warm and got all the UVB they can possibly have and everything's going well. And as you can see, Merlin is right here in his basking spot. He's modeling that for you so you can see this is what should happen. Now, an hour from now, I'm going to look over here and he'll be gaping, letting some heat out. But right now, he's perfectly comfortable. So if your dragon starts like this and 5 minutes later they get down and go somewhere else, or they lay on the floor next to the basking spot, you have too much heat. So you need to turn it down a little bit, okay? So I hope that that helped and told you what you needed to know. And we will go on from here. And thank you all for stopping by my channel. And I hope that this was very helpful. And stay tuned for more videos. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.